I sat down to do my research for this video to brew around Clarion Conqueror, and I thought there was going to be a whole bunch of deck lists with it in the main. Wrong. So, fine, I'll do it myself. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Edison has asked me to build some sort of stacksy, prison-y style deck around Clarion Conqueror. This card is just really good. It does a lot. It's a respectable size body, it has evasion, it shuts off artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers all at the same time. So if you are, say, a Tamiyo, who dies to this in combat, and the clue tokens don't work, and the planeswalker side doesn't work, that will make you a sad panda. But brewing around this is actually a little bit problematic, because you, in theory, want to accelerate this out and have it as quickly as possible, right? But then you're going to shut off your artifact mana that you used to get this out. Oh, I'll just accelerate it out with, like, Noble Hierarchs instead. Oh, it's going to shut off the activated abilities of creatures, too. You kind of see the innate problem here? And there are some really good white cards that you might want to play alongside of this that just get shut off by its own ability. Mother of Runes? No, sir. Ajani turning into a planeswalker? I think not. Now that one is a May ability, so you could just say no to that, but if you're not going to have access to the planeswalker side realistically, it's like maybe not great to play. And if you are trying to get cute and include this in another deck, you might trip over yourself. For example, something like Painter Combo can't be played alongside of this, you start running into some trouble. And if you're trying to play initiative creatures alongside this, which really want you to keep that artifact mana like Chrome Mox around, you are going to run into some trouble. So the first direction I started building this in was in an aggressive energy style shell. And I didn't like how this was starting, and I abandoned it. I thought, oh, we'll do Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, Esper Sentinel, we'll have lots of playable 1-drops, and then, like, maybe there'll be a Stoneforge Mystic package in there for Kaldra. And then I started thinking, like, a lot of the things that I would want to do with Stoneforge actually run into Clarion Conqueror, and I really need more stacks pieces in the deck than just what's here, and I was unhappy with the direction this was going, and I abandoned it. And I instead arrived here as my conclusion point. This is essentially going to be a called shot deck, where if we get paired against opponents that our cards are good against, our deck is going to be incredible. And if we don't, there might be some problems. So, what's the core of this deck? It's a bunch of hatebears and Phyrexian Dreadnought. We are going to not play traditional stacks pieces like Thalia and Thorn of Amethyst, Sphere of Resistance, Chalice of the Void. Instead, we are going to take called shots, and we are going to say, hey, your artifacts and creatures don't get to trigger abilities. So we are incidentally going to take out things like, say, Thassa's Oracle. So with Doorkeeper Thrull and Hushbringer, we can enable a 12/12 as early as turn 2 if we have a Lotus Petal, which is a fast way to win the game. But we are often going to settle in for a longer game, trying to accrue card advantage with Esper Sentinel, shut off counter spells with Voice of Victory, and once we reach 3 mana, we are going to get some other things that are pretty oppressive, Archon of Emeria, and our good dragon friend itself. We can play these 3-drops on turn 1 if we open up with both Ancient Tomb and Lotus Petal. I am comfortable playing Lotus Petal alongside Clarion Conqueror. I have mixed feelings about Chrome Mox and other persistent mana sources, though. So we're going to try this out. So, do we have a lot of hate effects? The answer is objectively just yes. We can even count Voice of Victory in that category. So there are 20 hateful cards here. That is a lot. Will these generically line up against every single opponent? The answer is no. However, when we have something that's good, boy howdy, is it going to be good. We have a little extra removal in this deck. I don't think you get to just play 4 Swords to Plowshares here, and without something like the One Ring, you don't really get to play Solitude either. Clarion Conqueror making it so that you can't activate the One Ring is a really, really big deal, because it would otherwise be absolutely perfect for this sort of deck. So we're going to rely on Sheltered by Ghosts to kind of push some damage through whatever our opponent is doing. And an enchantment is one of the few things that we are not actually shutting off here. I'm slightly worried that I don't have enough raw synergy for Voice of Victory, but I'm hoping that counting Razor Grass Ambush, I'm hoping that 8 main deck removal spells is just enough to kind of force us through in an appropriate way. And as far as the early game goes, we can open on an Esper Sentinel, we can open on any number of powerful turn 2 plays. Anytime we have a Lotus Petal, we accelerate, and we will also just have Urza Saga Ancient Tomb as a path to victory. Although, anecdotally, I feel like Urza Saga is a lot less good than it used to be in Legacy. It's just not doing enough in many cases. As far as the sideboard goes, we can get more hateful in very specific directions. I would love to play Containment Priest in this deck, but Phyrexian Dreadnought being fished out of the deck by Urza Saga is kind of a big deal. I don't necessarily want to shut that off. Ooh, that probably means I shouldn't be playing Grafdigger's Cage. This is actually surprisingly hard to replace because we can't do activated abilities with things like Tormod's Crypts and Friends. Maybe this should just be a Pithing Needle for Planeswalkers on the One Ring. Bam. Okay. So here we go. Here is our attempt at playing something pretty hateful with Clarion Conqueror. Again, I think you could build a more aggressive energy style version of this deck. I just didn't like how it was looking based on the initial draft. It was feeling awkward to me. I think if I continued to go down that road, I might be thinking about things like Wasteland to supplement Archon of Emeria, but that just might be a fully different deck. Anyway, folks, if you end up needing some Magic cards, please check out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. They're awesome, great customer service, fast shipping, free shipping, and if you need it even faster, you do have the ability to expedite that. Promo code ThrabenU saves you 5% on your order, and if you're going to an event like MagicCon Vegas, you could place your order in advance and pick it up on site, and that rules. So with that being said, let's battle. All right, I have kept my opening hand here. Let's reset that stop in case I need it. This is really strong. So we have Esper Sentinel into another hate bear of some kind, probably Archon of Emeria. This hand would be noticeably better if we were on the play, admittedly. Like, play versus draw is so huge here. Okay. So that's my opponent's one spell. I think I Archon. It is an Atraxa. That's all that they get. I can bounce that out of play. This is certainly bad, but this is not game over. All right. So I actually have to keep track of the stuff here. All right, so my opponent picked Ponder as their sorcery. They picked a Scalding Tarn. They discarded a Show and Tell. They kept a Lotus Petal and a Simian Spirit Guide. 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yes. So my opponent kept a bunch of mana. I wonder if it is correct to attempt to Swords Atraxa and leave Karakas available. And then if my opponent Force of Wills, I just bounce it. That might, in fact, be reasonable. Oh, they were just F6'd. Cool. That makes my job easier. Send in. 24. We might be okay. My opponent doesn't have red mana showing? That is a stock up. So I get a card out of that. Then they get a bunch of stuff. They're at 9 cards, so they are discarding 2 here. Unless they play a land. That's a weird one to play. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's a weird one. Oops, all Archons. Am I just casting more of those? So this Lotus Petal is gone. This is more than one spell each turn. It's not like non-creature or anything. I might want this for another Atraxa. I've played this, start working towards a Dreadnought. I think the game's over before that matters. I think I'm just going to do this and play Doorkeeper Thrull on my opponent's turn. If I do it after they cast a spell, this is effectively uncounterable. 21. This will likely still be tense. I think this is still a game of Magic the Gathering. tapped land, green mana, 4 mana, sneak attack. So I will draw a card. Another land. I'm going to go ahead and cast this now. That was good enough for a concession. Hot damn. So, Pithing Needle for sneak attack. Path to Exile is largely going to be better than Swords to Plowshares here. I can think about some other stuff here as well. Sheltered by Ghost is something that I can put in off of a show and tell, assuming that I already have a creature, which I think is a safe assumption that is going to be very good. How much of this stuff do I want? That is slightly unclear to me. My opponent just was feeding me cards with Esper Sentinel. I admittedly didn't need the cards, but that was their play pattern. Deafening Silence might be a better turn 1 opener than Esper Sentinel. My cards are just kind of good. Is it Voice of Victory? That feels weird. But cutting Voice of Victory might give me the highest density of relevant things. I don't yet know whether or not they have the One Ring for Clarion Conqueror purposes. That vastly changes my evaluation of that card. I'm going to go down on Clarion Conquerors, go up on some of these, and do something that looks like this. But like as soon as my opponent has the One Ring, Clarion Conqueror becomes one of the most important cards. Oh, that's a weird hand. Oh, that's a really weird hand. Just assuming any creature, I have Pithing Needle plus Karakas plus Great Thing to put in off of Show and Tell. I'm a believer. Opponent is on 5 cards and passes the turn. Yeah. I don't think I'm showing Karakas turn 1. Yeah. Opponent doesn't let me name Scalding Tarn. Wise. And then I will obviously name Sneak Attack here. Goodbye, Sneak Attack. I'm naming it anyway. Right, like, that's why they junk it. Alright, so no immediate show and tell. That means Karakas is live, which I probably just play out in case something goes desperately wrong. The Phyrexian Dreadnought is not very good on its own right now. Hopefully I enable it. If I do, it's a 2-turn clock. If I don't, I think it's fine as long as I draw just literally any creature. Okay. This plus this just must have just completely shut down my opponent. Karakas and Pithing Needle, congrats, your stacks cards now. You've been promoted. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. Okay, we've got a tricky one here. I don't have enough mana, but I have Hushbringer plus Dreadnought, maybe uncounterably, and a way to get more mana. We're gonna risk it. Opponent is on 6 cards. Oh, gonna be one of those rounds. Okay. In good news, I'm not dead on turn 1. In better news, my opponent does not get to take my Hushbringer that can shut off Thassa's Oracle. In worse news, my opponent can probably just win through a Hushbringer anyway. And I might just die next turn. I'm not going to show the land that I just drew. Alright, F6, do your thing. Am I dead? 14. Cabal Therapy. That can get rid of my Hushbringer. And it does. Would be a cool time to draw an Ancient Tomb! That helps a lot. That helps a lot. Send in for 1. Opponent has taken a lot of damage already from their own lands. Good guys win, bad guys lose. Leyline in, Null Rod in, Damping Sphere in, Deafening Silence in, Pithing Needle questionable. We're probably going to go all the Swords to Plowshares out. I might keep Sheltered by Ghosts. At worst, that gives me lifelink. At best, that exiles a Goblin Charbelcher, a Rotting Regisaur, whatever bullshit my opponent has. I don't need to worry about counterspells from my opponent for the most part. That probably means Voice of Victory can go. And Esper Sentinel is perhaps not overly exciting. I'm probably going to get rid of those. Ignoring Phyrexian Dreadnought, that gives me 16 creatures. That's a little light if I am trying to play Sheltered by Ghosts. Is it more important to be able to answer exactly Goblin Charbelcher, or is it more important to just answer a creature when it comes down? Maybe it's just more important to answer a creature when it comes down. This is that same low creature count. Hopefully that's fine. Hopefully that's fine. I can adjust a little bit if I do see Charbelcher. Hopefully I just put a Leyline into play and my opponent just concedes and leaves me alone. If I don't die on turn 1, this hand is exceptional. I fucking hate this deck. I hate this play pattern so much. Like, where if I don't mulligan to Leyline of the Void, some percentage of the time I just die on turn 1 and don't get to play Magic. Keep. Alright, let's see if I die. Discard slows me down. Discard means that I can't play my turn 1 hate piece. Oh, I lost Clarion Conqueror instead. That is slightly surprising. Sure. Oh, are we actually storming and not oops? Yeah, LED would indicate that we're actually storming. Thought it was just going to be oops with extra discard. This is a land drop that could be duressed. So let's play that one. Duress makes me lose Damping Sphere. That means Hushbringer is a lot less good here. Sure. I have a banger of a play for the following turn. I no longer have a banger of a play for the following turn. This is hopefully fine. Bam. Bam. Hoping for good things off the top of the deck here, but my opponent doesn't seem to have a lot going on. Okay. Send them. This is definitely a little weird, though, because I saw all mono black lands last game. I'll have some sideboard adjustments to do if my opponent ends up winning this one. 11. Alright, we're chilling. I'm not clocking hard enough. That's not what I want. 9? I am kind of above minimum storm count kill thresholds, though, assuming that's what my opponent's doing. This could just be some weirdo mono black reanimator nonsense. Goblin Charbelcher. No, okay. I guess I was right. The LED is just to activate Charbelcher. Okay, no, I called it correctly. Cool. So we can at least take a look at my opponent's deck, see if there's anything spicy going on. No, okay, so there are multiple LEDs for the Charbelcher bullshit. Okay, got it. And Beseech the Mirror. So they could now pivot out of that stuff, if they wanted. But since I have seen their pivot, I now know that I don't need this shit anymore. These can become these to answer Charbelchers. But my opponent could be just back fully on graveyard bullshit. This is 61 as it stands. Trim a Sheltered by Ghosts. That's not super, super potent. I also don't think it would be crazy to just get rid of all of my Phyrexian Dreadnoughts and just play Voice of Victory. Just so if I keep a hand that has a bunch of lock pieces, any creature that I top deck is just better. Okay, so this hand really doesn't have enough mana. I'm going to mulligan this one. This is fantastic. I'm going to keep this one. I think I get rid of the Thrull and I go 1, 2, 3 as my curve, even if this and this are redundant. I think I just kind of assume that a discard spell takes one of these two. So much for my ley lines, though. There's a decent chance that my opponent is just on the same configuration that they were on for the previous game. Deafening Silence. Lotus Petal is their spell, which I get to invalidate with Null Rod. That's totally fine. Love seeing that. Nice. We win. I don't feel good about it. Please get this out of my format. Okay, opening hand doesn't have a turn 1 play, but has 2 very good turn 2 plays. I am okay with this overall. In a vacuum, I am likely to lead on Archon of Emeria as my first play. And maybe my second play, too. Let's see what our opponent is up to. Underground Sea, untapped, suspicious. Don't entomb me. Fuck. Maybe? Okay, that's not immediate reanimate. That's good news. That's a shuffle. Oh shit. So you're telling me there's a chance. Uh, 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 I think this has more upside. I think this has more upside. If my opponent already has Animate Dead in hand, this might keep them from casting their spell. The downside of casting this is that this is dazable, whereas if I play Ancient Tomb here and then this is not dazable. It is Force of Will instead. So we clench, and we pray. Dear Keranos, don't let him have it. Okay. Rainstorm doesn't get me dead now, but potentially gets my opponent the land or the reanimate or whatever that they need to round out this turn. Holy shit, they don't have it. Okay. Everybody calm down. So, we're going to shut off counterspells with Voice of Victory, and then we are going to make it so that if my opponent gets an Atraxa, it does not give them all of the bonus extra cards. And then I can just hopefully answer it with Sheltered by Ghosts and move on with my life. I feel like we have gotten extremely lucky here, and I am thankful. I have seen very, very little Reanimator in leagues recently. It is supposedly a good chunk of the metagame right now. I am just not encountering it personally. If you got something else to do, opponent, now's the time, because you just don't get to do it. Lotus Petal brings me to 6 mana for this turn, which is actually super relevant. Yeah, that's super relevant. I have to be very specific here with how I do this. So I need to use Lotus Petal mana now. Play Clarion Conqueror prior to Archon of Emeria. And then drop Archon. We know these things are resolving. I've dealt a lot of damage to myself with this Ancient Tomb now that I'm looking at this. Holy crap. Send them. Mobilize. Respectable damage here. And we'll see what my opponent does. Something like Animate Dead is totally fair game here. Oh, that's, oh, I can feel that one. Yeah. That is a Reanimate. Now, this notably is not giving my opponent through. Absolutely disgusting. Sheltered by Ghosts. Uncounterably. Yeah. So, if my opponent fetches a basic land there and casts Animate Dead, they have 7 more life. I'm dealing 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They would live to see another day. Although with Dreadnought and or Urza Saga tokens coming and more other Dreadnought, I think I still win that one pretty handily. Okay, so in addition to the reanimate stuff, we need to respect fair creatures like Tamios and Goyfs and stuff of that nature, Bowmasters potentially. So I absolutely want Leylines. I probably want more fair removal, and we'll just see how we're adjusting the rest of the deck. There is some question of how many removal spells exactly I do want. I think the answer is a lot. I don't yet know whether or not my opponent has Tameo, which changes my evaluation of Clarion Conqueror. I think I'm going to get rid of Esper Sentinels. That is a fine filler card in Game 1. I think those just become my Leyline of the Voids. And then I think I'm going to max out on removal. Sometimes my opponent can get an Atraxa or an Archon of Cruelty, and I just exile it and move on with my life. Swords gives my opponent a lot of life. Path to Exile gives them a land. Sheltered by Ghosts sets me up for blowouts, but is otherwise rather powerful. Trim. I don't know that I want to eliminate any one thing. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. So, Leyline in play. Underground Sea. Apologies if you all get any mowing noise in the audio. My next door neighbors are mowing. This is apparently a tough choice for my opponent, which probably means that they both have counter spells and something that could be removed. Dreadnought is not doing anything immediately. My Dreadnought's getting reanimated if I have Hushbringer style cards in play is definitely a thing. We're going to shift into an Urza Saga mid-range plan. I've got Swords to Plowshares around Days in the short term. Opponent likes their card. I don't like that. Alright, they're chilling. Interesting. That's a weird draw. I think I don't do that this turn in all likelihood. This is just suspicious. I'm going to make my Urza Saga token. And then I've got a tough choice. Because, like, this can tutor up a Dreadnought. I think I just don't. That's fine. I can lose out on that creature. That's no big deal. I just get a Lotus Petal here. It's something that can sit on the battlefield. Although I might just cast Voice of Victory immediately. Because if I know that this is going to resolve, it's bananas. I in fact think I'm going to play Voice of Victory around Daze. Let's do that. Life total is a resource. In play. And if my opponent on their turn uses their mana to kill Voice of Victory, that makes it less likely that Doorkeeper Thrull is going to just get nuked. Go for the Throat is fine. Now that's not happening to my Thrull. And hopefully I just Dreadnought. Oh, opponent didn't attack. Saga? Saga. Roll? Dreadnought. Tamiyo's dead. This will live through at least one of these next turn. I'm not going to attack in right now. We've shut off our opponent's graveyard, meaning that they are reliant on the fair side of their deck. Now they can create a window to do something strong, like a Goyf. Although they don't even have enough mana to do that. Voice of Victory. Don't mind if I do. Let's just make sure no nonsense is going to happen. Alright, so this is at least a 2-2 now. Would I be willing to trade for both bodies? Nah. This is fine. So now my opponent is still, unfortunately for them, using mana to spin their wheels and make a plan. They might need something like a Brainstorm specifically to get rid of multiple dead cards. All the Animate Deads, Entombs, Reanimates, like those sorts of cards are just not looking good right now. If it makes it back to my turn and I have this, I just get another Phyrexian Dreadnought. Which is really rough for my opponent. 2-2. Nice. Just dealing more damage to myself. That's fine. Not like my opponent's using my life total. There's a Dreadnought. I know all my stuff is resolving. Go to punchies. Everybody come into play. That was devastating. I was just fully in control of that match the entire time. We are now 3-0. This Clarion Conqueror deck that I slapped together might actually be kind of good. Okay, I just don't have enough mana here. This is fine. What am I putting back? The basic planes and just take some extra Ancient Tomb damage, probably? Yeah. This just gives me the highest degree of chance of having a relevant hate card. Are we playing fair or unfair? Probably fair. I am fine with just trying to remove... Is that true? Is that true? Is that true? I think it's true, because sometimes this bait's a counterspell. Alright, cool. Like, the Clarion Conqueror will be good versus future copies, and is still just a 3-3 flyer if things don't go my way. I also might not play Clarion Conqueror next turn. Sometimes I just play Hushbringer and Urza Saga and start going down that route for a little while. That is a shuffle. Past turn, no land drop? No, there is another land. Oh, it makes a Fatal Push so good. Oh, it makes a Daze so good. I don't think I'm going to do it here. I think I'm going to use this as a bait card, see if we get any interaction out of my opponent here. And then next turn, I can play Hushbringer, Urza Saga, Phyrexian Dreadnought all at once. There's a Brainstorm in response. Ooh, it resolved. Happy to see that. Now, what happens? Like that's sad. So the card you take here is probably the Hushbringer, just by the way, because Urza Saga can fetch another Dreadnought. So you leave me with the Dreadnought in hand, even though that allows me to top deck another Hushbringer and do the thing immediately. The Hushbringer is a pretty bad long-term threat. Pretty scary long-term threat, rather. But this is apparently not immediately obvious to my opponent. This whole Phyrexian Dreadnought Hushbringer thing is not something that sees much legacy play. Like, fractions of a percent. They figured it out, though. Good on them. Sheltered by Ghosts is a thing. Ooh, am I getting removed? I am getting removed. Sure. So we go mid-range. And we start doing fair Urza Saga stuff. We have a removal spell and a half here, kind of depending on how you count these. Our opponent might be a mid-range deck. It is still possible that they have a Reanimator combo in there. We'll get more information as the game goes on. I'm guessing this is going to be more of a Murktide Regent Goyf style deck. Yeah, there we go. And we're chilling. Swords is a good pickup. I'll just swords it. That's fine. I also think since I am about to lose a land, I'm just going to play that as a land drop. Opponent has more land too, which is probably not what they want. Hopefully I just run them over with Urza Saga tokens here. This is a moment where they can Bowmaster. Okay. Do I want to leave myself the possibility of casting Sheltered by Ghosts? I don't think so. I don't think that's necessary. Alright, there's the Bowmaster. This is fine. Throw my threat. Row my threat. I think I don't deploy this, at least not immediately. Opponent's fetching end of turn. Not a Surveil land. Petty Theft. Sure, that's good value for my opponent. Okay, so opponent is Hellbent, but they are going to have 5 power worth of stuff. I just need to draw something reasonable, put a Sheltered by Ghosts on it, and then hopefully lifelink my way to victory. That is not something reasonable. I'll be very disappointed if we just bottom out and lose this one. I was in such a good position. There's the Surveil land. Chunking a Daze. I am at 9. Ancient Tombs are starting to be a little spooky. That's a little scary. 3, 6, 7, and 8. Cool. I am at 1. I don't get to tap Ancient Tombs anymore. I'm upset. That's very disappointing. Yeah, on the next turn, I get a Doorkeeper Thrull and a Dreadnought, followed shortly thereafter by a lifelinking one. Okay. We'll do our best to win both of the next 2. It looks like my opponent is playing fair, so I am into bonus removal spells. I think I'm fine with maxing out on Sheltered by Ghosts, despite the fact that it has some ability to be blown out by my opponent's instant speed black removal. I think I'm going down on Esper Sentinels here. I might get rid of them completely. They're just very bad versus Bowmaster. And I think I'm going to play a Pithing Needle for the backside of Tamiyo in case things go wrong. Okay, my opening hand is fine. I think I'm going to lead on Caracas so that my opponent can't lead on turn 1 Tamiyo. This does make me wastelandable, but I think I am fine with that. Like, I do have 4 lands in hand, and if that gets wastelanded so Urza Saga doesn't get wastelanded, that is a plus for me. Now I have to decide when I am playing my spells. I think I don't go Urza Saga immediately. I have other things that I would like to cast. I am potentially going to just play like Voice of Victory on my turn. That's fine. I think I'm going to path that. My mana is pretty tied up here. My opponent can get their basic swamp. Cool. Ooh. I don't have 4 mana next turn with 2 white as of right now. I think I'm going to go with the upside of Archon over Voice of Victory around Days. My opponent hasn't really had chances to cast cantrips yet, so if I stick those in my opponent's hand, or just force them to use their turn only on cantripping, that is good for me. Fast shuffle there. That's your 1. They do get a Surveil land, though. A new Caracas. Well, now I get 2 spells this turn if I want. Well, I guess there's Archon. JK. That specifically is a little awkward, right? Because like with Ancient Tomb, I can't spread the colorless mana out across 2 turns, even though I could have 4 mana. I think I play Voice of Victory this turn, even though that doesn't leave Caracas open for an opposing Tamiyo. Dismember on Archon. Voice of Victory still live, and it is a Goyf. Hopefully I just draw a removal spell for that, because I can't attack into that body. So now there's some tension between wanting this to resolve and not wanting to telegraph this. I think I just guarantee that it resolves and pass. I'm not sure about that, though. Could also potentially play a second Urza Saga there, and that would not be crazy. Land drop from my opponent. My plan to answer this is make large Urza Saga construct tokens, assuming that something happens to Doorkeeper Thrull. I am going to let this hit me here. Getting a Kaito? That doesn't make sense. Or, oh, my opponent just knew what was up on top from Ponder. I see. They can get another Goyf. EE is something that's really good to know about for if we go to another game. That's what I didn't want to see. Yikes. I need some lucky draw steps here. That's not that. I could try to spend multiple turns like chump blocking with construct tokens, but I just don't think I am going to beat 2 of those in a fair capacity. GG's. Okay. This hand is just a fair Urza Saga hand. It can get extremely unfair easily, but this is just a fair Urza Saga hand. I'm going to say this is a reluctant keep. My opponent is on 6. Bloodstained Mire. Are we doing more Reanimator stuff? Or are we doing Storm stuff? End of turn fetch. On their own end step. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm going to play this. I think off of... do I want to show Karakas? I don't think I want to show Karakas. So my read on the current situation is Reanimator with Witherbloom Apprentice in the sideboard. That is my working theory. Delta. Here we go. It is Entomb. So the hope is that opponent gets a legendary creature here. That is a legendary creature. Shallow Grave. And then opponent can draw a bunch of cards and try to win. Lotus Petal. Clarion Conqueror, notably, can shut off Grizzlebrand's ability. That's quite real here. Alright, I lost the Conqueror. Opponent's got a good chunk of cards there. Can get 7 more post-combat. Grizzlebrand has haste due to Shallow Grave. Down to 4. Duskborn Swamp. Oh, we're doing more. Is it Children of Corliss? It is Borborygmos Enraged. There is another Shallow Grave. So now my opponent can just throw a land at Hushbringer, attack me for 14, and presumably just get a kill here. Oh, they're gonna let me block. You trample? I think I just block, then. Maybe sometimes I make it out of this turn alive. Then the Borborygmos Enraged trigger can give my opponent some lands. Cabal Therapy to graveyard. Draw 7. So now it's just, can my opponent deal 14 damage with Borborygmos Enraged? 3, 6, 9, 12. Yeah. Opponent said, didn't realize that thing had flying. Should read. Accurate. You won anyway, but discarding a land to kill a Hushbringer makes it so that you deal 7 more damage. Okay. Sideboard Hateful Things. Leyline in, probably still Deafening Silence in, probably Damping Sphere in. I don't think Null Rod. Probably both of these in. I honestly don't need Esper Sentinels. That's not what this is going to be about. Sheltered by Ghosts as sorcery speed removal is not going to be hyper effective here. Let's now sort this. I will need 5 more cuts. Is it Dreadnought? Might just be Dreadnought. No. I don't know. These are pretty bad without the Dreadnoughts. The stuff that I'm dragging over to the right, I don't think I am ever cutting. This I'm just playing because it is aggressive here and my opponent's life total is relevant, potentially. So maybe this becomes like, bam, both fly, tutor target, trim. Clarion Conqueror kind of shuts down my opponent's deck. Would I do that turn 2? If I lose Clarion Conqueror, I have Karakas, 2 bounce creatures, plus Pithing Needle. I think it's fine. I am going to show this on turn 1, though, I think. And I think you name Grizzlebrand here, because the Borborygmos is really only good if the Grizzlebrand fuels it. I love seeing a tapped land here. That means that I can get Clarion Conqueror into play. When it says no to a reanimate, and then passes the turn, that's great. Ooh. I think since this just shuts off the Lotus Petal, I go for the Clarion Conqueror immediately. Yeah. The Archon is very good, though. Next turn I can play Archon and then hold up Karakas as well. Third mana source, second mana source, really, I guess. Oh, it's just Chain of Smog. How do I feel about mutually assured destruction here? I don't think I'm a fan. I think I'm just gonna discard some cards. I do not wish to copy the spell. More Archon. I'm going to make it so that my opponent can't activate abilities. I'm going to make it so that they don't get to deal combat damage to me with legendary creatures. And I'm going to shut off a lot of their ritual stuff. Opponent does not have green mana for Witherbloom Apprentice as of right now. Well, there it is. They would have to play Witherbloom Apprentice and then play Chain of Smog afterwards. Good luck hitting. I don't think Archon of Emeria is the name. That's what I think the name is. Because you want to be able to play out Witherbloom Apprentice and then Chain of Smog the following turn. Plains is not what I am looking for. I do have a decent amount of removal that I can top deck. I'm going to just hold this Plains in my hand as a bluff. There's another land. That's not green mana. Stronghold Gambit? What is this red? Meltdown? Stronghold Gambit. That's an oldie. Alright. Oh, I do have to choose a card, but the owner of each creature revealed with the lowest mana value puts it onto the battlefield. That's an Atraxa. My opponent has cast their one spell. Yeah, so I guess I can bounce this in a minute. But my opponent can get Witherbloom Apprentice and a Chain of Smog here. These Archons are doing work. Stronghold Gambit means that if we go to another game, I should not necessarily play out my last creature if I don't think it's relevant. Swamp, Dark Ritual, Witherbloom, Chain of Smog. And soon to be Atraxa as well. Yeah, my opponent sees the writing on the wall and knows that I can just two-turn them with the flyers. For this game where I'm on the draw, I might just board down on Voice of Victory and keep two more things that stop Atraxa triggers. If my opponent is playing Stronghold Gambit, do I want Sheltered by Ghosts? I don't think so. I've already got 6 answers, and I think there's some real costs to decreasing my own creature count too much. This is medium? I have an answer to a creature. I have something that stops a slow Atraxa. I can work towards Phyrexian Dreadnought. I have something that stops my opponent's Grizzlebrand combo stuff, but this is slow for being on the draw. An Ancient Tomb or Lotus Petal goes a long way. Even a Leyline is a lot of safety. I think I'm going to mulligan this. Well, this is faster. The Ball Therapy on Lotus Petal would be a kick in the teeth, but this is otherwise pretty damn good. I will be keeping this. I'm thinking about Hushbringer versus Doorkeeper Thrull. Flash versus Lifelink. I think I'll value Flash. I'm keeping both Lotus Petals so that if my opponent thought seizes me and takes Clarion Conqueror, I can play all of my other stuff on turn 1. Oh, did you just have Entomb plus Reanimate immediately? Yep. This may be a game. Oh, it's Animate Dead. Okay. That's not great. See if my opponent just goes for the 7 or if they go for 14. 14 it is. And it might just lose for not mulliganing to Leyline. Alright. So now my opponent gets to see my hand. None of it's a removal spell for this Grizzlebrand. Need to luck into that. The nightmare scenario is the Ball Therapy on Lotus Petal, taking both Lotus Petals. Dark Ritual. Unmask, targeting themselves now. Or an Atraxa. And there's a Shallow Grave there. Yuck. Wasn't my opponent on like 5? Yeah. Pretty good. There's another Entomb and Animate Dead there. I lose both Lotus Petals. Sick. Love that for me. Beyond that, if my opponent wants, they can attack with Atraxa and then draw another 7 with Grizzlebrand. So here's my 7. 13. Are you drawing more? Sack with Cabal Therapy. I'll lose yet another card. I lose Clarion Conqueror. Opponent takes another draw 7. And we'll see if they can finish it out here. Or if I get a chance to luck sack into Caracas. Okay. I get a chance to Luxsack into Caracas. I did not Luxsack into Caracas. That probably means that I die on my opponent's turn. I don't literally die to the Grizzlebrand, but my opponent just had a billion cards in hand, and the top card of their graveyard is now an Archon of Cruelty, so, you know, does not bode well. There's the Shallow Grave. That'll do. We can tap out there. Opponent's got this. It's very disappointing to keep a hand that has 3 different hate cards and then just die on turn 1 because I did not mulligan to Leyline. C'est la vie. Still a positive record. So, overall thoughts on the Dragon and the deck list. So this was fine. We started out 3-0, which was really strong. We fell off towards the end, but I think all of our matches were pretty reasonable. I had good agency in a lot of games. Is this stronger than other ways that you could build a deck like this one? Maybe. I think that's all I'm willing to give it. I think the big downside for me is just that Urza Saga is not super good anymore. As we saw versus the Goyfs in, I think that was round 4, when your opponent just has 5, 6, or larger creatures, your Urza Saga Construct tokens are just not keeping up with that, and when they Death Touch and Lifelink, it's rough to try to rely on this. I think this was a pretty well-constructed deck. I am happy with the numbers, despite the fact that, I slapped this together in half an hour or so. Emphasis on the or so, though, this time. Because there weren't very many decks to base my deck list on, that is probably a sign that Clarion Conqueror in the main is perhaps not the best. This is a card that is going to shut down Nadu, which is a big deal. This is a card that does deal heavy blows to, your artifact mana out of things like Oops All spells, some of your activated abilities, Tamios. Like, this card does a lot. What is the rest of the supporting cast supposed to look like? Like, should I just give up on occasionally having negative synergy and play 4 Ancient Tomb, 4 City of Traders, or Chrome Mox, and just do Clarion Conquerors and maybe Initiative Creatures, Anointed Peacekeepers, blanking on the name, Lightcaster, Devout Lightcaster, whatever the 3/1 flyer that makes things more expensive is. Like, do you go down that route? Do you try to build an energy route like I was doing with that other shell? Clarion Conqueror has real deck building costs. I liked the fact that I had these Doorkeeper Thrulls and Hushbringers and Voice of Victories and Esper Sentinels in the early game leading up to it. And so sometimes my opponent would use removal or interaction on those, and then my Archons and Clarion Conquerors were sticking. That I did like. What's here can probably be refined a little bit further. I'm not sure if it is worth refining more. The deck was solid. I am very happy with the deck, but I'm not sure that I've quite solved it. So if you don't want to mess around with the Phyrexian Dreadnought stuff, you can just very easily go into a second color and start playing generic good cards like Scythecat Cub and just fill your deck with things that do triggered abilities instead. Well, I guess if you take the Doorkeeper Thrulls out of it, you just play different hate cards. I think there's a lot of ways to build this deck, and I hope you all get to try it out and find some of them. I think we'll leave it here before I just kind of mumble to myself for too long. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!